So morning everyone. Before I start, I would like to thank CIAS, Charity Council, as well as the knowledge partner SUSS for the kind invitation to speak this morning itself. So they make me the first speaker because as what the MC has introduced myself, I'm a risk practitioner. I know how to manage risk. I should be able to manage the first speaking slot itself. So with this, very quickly for this morning, what I wanted to share with everyone as what both Minister as well as Chair Lady has also kindly helped me to promote in terms of this morning's session itself, where I'll be running through in terms of the survey result and also giving everyone a snippet in terms of the ERM journey and also a conclusion. So very quickly, I think earlier on, both Minister as well as Chair Lady has already mentioned in terms of the 2016 charity toolkits as well as the charity survey. So fast forward 7 years later, which is this year, we also did a very similar toolkit as well as a follow-up on the survey that we have done 7 years ago. Similarly, same team, same KPMG team, Charity Council as well as Professor Ho Yuki. He was previously from NUS, that's why you see NUS in 2016, and for 2023, he has moved to SIT. So thank you very much, Prof. Ho and his SIT team for this contribution in this survey itself. So quickly in terms of the result, or before I start, in terms of the quick snapshot about the survey itself. So as again, Minister and Chair Lady has highlighted that thank you to everyone who have actively participated in this particular survey. We have close to 20% of the charity sector responding to us, a very good result, a good representation across the various sector itself. Obviously, we see religious as well as social and welfare being the highest component, but we also see, interestingly, more than 50% or 57% of the respondents are actually have served in this sector for more than 20 years. So quite a good response. In addition to that, if you look at the profile of the respondents from across the different charities, we actually have a mixed bag across the large, medium, as well as small charity itself. So like I said, a very good response. And in terms of the profiling, we do also see about 20% having employees of more than 100 and above. In terms of the size of the board size, majority, I will have to say that 67% actually have 15 members or less. So it's very similar to what we typically see also in the profiling of a listed company. So when it comes to management committee size, we also see that on the very right-hand side that I think it's on the left-hand side of the screen itself, we do see that about 62% actually have about 10 members within the management committee. So the good news for everyone is when it comes to the comparison of the 2023 survey vis-a-vis the 2016, we do see a very good improvement in terms of the result. So 53% of the charities actually report having a formal ERM policy as compared to 25% in the past. And then we do see 75% saying that risk management is very essential and of high priority in 2023 versus only 25% in 2016. And of course, 44% have a dedicated risk management personnel in their charities versus only 17% in 2016. And a very high 87% actually mentioned that C-suite or board level or AC members are actually responsible for risk management. And the good news is 26% actually do reporting to the board on a regular basis. So the good news, and actually a very well done to all the charities and to all the respondents here, as compared to what we typically see in a listed company regime, this is a very good result. So congratulations to everyone. So if you look at the profiling of the responses again, breaking down into large charities, mid-size as well as small, you see the good result coming from the one that is highlighted, boxed up in blue, a good percentage of increase for 78% for 10 million and above. But if you look at the one that is highlighted in box itself, we actually had a very good increase in the mid-sized charities. So those charities with $500,000 to $5 million. So a huge increase in terms of having an ERM policy itself. So in the next question that we see, we also look at percentage of charities who view risk management as essential and of high priority. I would like to also highlight that perhaps one of the good reasons is also because when we did this survey is in 2023, where all of us just perhaps came out from COVID itself. So a huge percentage of us finally recognize that risk management is actually a very important part of the way that we operate, not just because we are a charity, but in all scheme of things. So good result, good news. And we look at the responsibility of risk management. 44% mentioned that we do have a dedicated risk personnel, but obviously we still have quite a fair bit of room to improve when it comes to having a dedicated risk personnel. So earlier before I came into this session itself, I was just having a chat with some of you all. So one of the main reasons for the inability to hire someone obviously is on cost, as well as we are fighting with a lot of the other organizations that the listed companies, as well as the financial institution when it comes to having the ability to hire someone. But the good news on the very right-hand side that we see here, in terms of the primary responsibility of risk management, I'm happy to see that in terms of the result for internal audit, at least very, very few percentage actually highlight that risk management is the responsibility of internal audit function. For those who are very familiar with the 3 lines of defense, you all understand that risk management is actually in line 2, whereas internal audit is sitting at line 3 itself. So it's different sources of the assurance. So it's a very good news to see that at least charities do recognize that when it comes to the responsibility of risk management is actually with the management. So obviously, in terms of the board's responsibility, I will also want to highlight it's primarily still oversight. But when it comes to the day-to-day running, it's still the management responsibility. So in terms of the reporting to the board itself, we do see that about 80% of you report regularly to the board, either once a quarter or once every 6 months itself. So, but as you analyze a little bit further, the reasons for reporting to the board, 18% actually mentioned that it's assurances that charity is in a good position. It's for reporting potential issues. So the questions that we always ask is the same question that we ask listed company. When it comes to risk management, are we doing it more for reporting purposes, or are we doing it more for managing of risk? So it's a question for all of us to think about when it comes to enterprise risk management. Is it more for reporting, or is it more for our own good? We do need to understand and manage our own risk. So let's look at what the charities have selected as their top 5 risks across the different categories. So similar to 2016, we have bucketed the different risks into 5 common categories, from strategy, financial, operational, compliance, as well as technology risk. So the top 5 choices, if you look at the one that is highlighted in pink, strategy risk, is actually very heartening to see that charities actually pick digital and innovation risk as one of our top choices for strategy. This resonates very much with what Minister has highlighted, that we do need to think about how we revisit the adoption of technology, the adoption of digitalization to help us move into the next phase. So this is also following on what we have seen during COVID, where in the past, pre-COVID, we used to say that charity sector, it's high touch but low tech. But what happened during the whole COVID, we all know that charity is also high tech, high touch. So it's heartening to see that digital and innovation has been selected as a new risk and is bucketed under strategy, which is a upside risk. So that's the other concept that we wanted to highlight to everyone, that when it comes to risk management, it's not just about downside or it's about negative, it's also about upside and opportunity. Let's seize it now and not later. If I point you to the other bucket of the risk, which is on compliance, if you look at the last very tiny word, money laundering. So money laundering is also the hot topic that we've been hearing. It's also heartening to mention that we did this survey before the whole saga came out. This is already a concern that the charities have already highlighted. So it's not a new issue. It has always been an issue that a lot of you have pointed out, trying to address, trying to resolve. So something for us to think about as this saga evolves. So in terms of the rest of the other areas, it's not surprising to myself or also my team The only thing that we didn't see or it wasn't selected as the top choice, which has always been my top choice, is actually relevancy risk. How do we ask, the key question that I always ask the charities will be, how do we make sure that the programs that we do continue to be something that your beneficiary actually want? So it's a key question. I always believe that if we continue to be relevant in the way that we do things, our funding will come when it comes to our attraction of talent, our attraction of volunteers will also come naturally. So that is always one of my key choices, but it's surprise that I didn't see it in this survey itself. So something for all of us to take away. So in terms of the risk mitigation strategy and challenges, one of the most popular risk mitigation adopted by respondents is still the documentation of policies and procedures, as what we see 23% actually highlighted formalized policies and procedures. But on the flip side, we do see majority or more than half actually mentioned the lack of manpower as well as the lack of experience as one of the hurdle on why they do not have good responses to manage risk. So as part of the survey itself, obviously we also mentioned about hot topic like ESG. So I will have to give everyone a good clap to say that we do see a huge response or high level of management responses. 63% of you all mentioned that you have high level of awareness on ESG and climate risk, and a good 60% actually rely on senior management directive for identifying and assessing ESG and climate risk. So which also means that awareness is there, but on the other hand, we only see that 9% actually put in place a formal documentation for managing climate and ESG risk, while 30% has an informal approach in this. So the good reason that we can see in the market itself, obviously, is the whole jungle of jargons when it comes to ESG. What do we collect? Which is why the whole data collection for ESG and climate risk remains to be very, very patchy, as what you've seen in this diagram itself. So E represents environment, S is social, G is actually on governance. So I would only like to say that when it comes to matrices that are easy to understand, easy to identify, actually we do have double digit versus those like greenhouse emission, which is something of a newer topic to a lot of the charity itself. We do see actually very less responses as well as less adoption in this. So in terms of the help and guidances, obviously in the whole survey, a lot of respondents actually mentioned that how does the sector help in this? How do you establish a whole ESG framework? There's a lot more training, workshop related to ESG matters that is needed. And going forward, how do we monitor and report on ESG-related matters, as well as what are some of the data that is required to be monitored by charity itself? So obviously, there's a lot of need, a lot of help, a lot of guidances that is required. I'm sure Charity Council will definitely, in the midst of time, roll out different set of toolkits as well as templates to help everyone. So the last topic when it comes to the whole survey is on business continuity planning. So during the whole COVID itself, a lot of you have also come across the different BCP program and documents that the respective ministry have issued. So again, this is a very key topic that we think is important in a sense that because we are going through a huge uncertain world, so we must always be very ready and very prepared for things that happen, which is why the whole business continuity is important. So 41% of you mentioned that you do have a BCP in place, but close to 30% of y'all actually do not have anything. So I have taken that most of y'all would have relied on some of the government initiative to help you on business continuity. So 84% actually develop it in-house, and 46% of you have undergone a whole tabletop exercise itself. Personally, I think that there's a lot more things that needed on this particular space, especially as simple as like, do you know how to do a fire drill post-COVID itself? So something for all of us to ponder over. And the key takeaway for the survey is risk management practices have improved, but obviously resource constraint is always an issue. And like I said, ERM is always a journey. Since 2016 to 2023, 7 years, we are still continuously trying to evolve the whole methodology and helping everyone. And the last bit is how do we always get ready and be prepared for BCP and also newer risks or newer topic like ESG. So as part of the whole survey, what we have also done is to help out with a toolkit itself. So this is a snippet of the 2016 ERM toolkit that was issued. So in this particular toolkit, what we have done in terms of the whole process is to help charities come out with the whole ERM process and also helping in developing the whole ERM framework. So then 7 years ago, majority of y'all have mentioned that you don't know what is ERM. So that's the ERM 101 for everyone. So in terms of the maturity journey that we are talking about, we start with a risk-aware journey, which is I know my risk. As we move to the next phase, it's talking about I know how to manage risk. So we always say like we start with reporting before we talk about how do we manage a risk. And obviously, as we move on into our maturity journey, we want to use risk management to create value. So in terms of the 7 pillars that we have previously shown in our toolkit, this is the A to Z, the 7 pillars that we have also modeled after COSO ERM framework as well as ISO 31000. If you see the little ticks that you in this across the 7 pillars, so for charities who have used our toolkit or who have used the toolkit to help you in the ERM journey itself, you would have ticked off majority of the areas of the pillars itself. So this is something to encourage everyone that based on what we have seen, typically after you adopt at least the whole governance, risk governance, setting up of the responsibility, you are able to address half of what is stated in a lot of the literature. So as part of the continuous improvement that we have for the charity, Chair Lady has also highlighted, we have also included key risk indicators for risk monitoring for this year's toolkit. So this is an early warning type of the methodologies that we have included to help everyone when it comes to the managing of the risk. One of the important element of KRIs is actually not so much documentation, but it's more of harnessing of the right data to help you to identify near misses in your process itself. So more will be shared in the toolkit itself. In addition, as part of the whole ESG topic itself, we have also introduced the ESG framework. Again, I have always told a lot of my clients and a lot of participants, when it comes to ESG framework, it's not something that you rebuild from scratch. We have adopted the ERM 7 pillar as part of the methodology itself. It's just more of an extension of the different pillars into the entire ESG framework. What we wanted to highlight to everyone is do not reinvent the wheel when it comes to ESG, because again, a lot of the areas of concern is part and parcel of your entire risk universe. So a good illustrative ESG roadmap at a glance, again, the details are also stated in the toolkit, is we always start with the reporting. It's only when we know what type of data we need to collect for reporting purposes, then a lot of time it will set organization to think of or to identify areas that we can integrate. Identify your ESG strategy. We will review our existing policy. So that's the whole enhancement stage. But before that, we need to at least make sure that what we need to collect. So it's going back to our earlier point that the whole data collection is still patchy at this juncture. So hopefully with the harmonization of a lot of the jargons that we see in the ESG world, the reporting will be a lot more formal, a lot more structured. With this, we definitely look forward to a lot more enhancing of the processes as well as the transformation of our processes as we adopt or embrace on this journey. So in terms of the blueprint that we have, again, I have to reiterate that ESG should be built into your existing framework. It should not be something that is very new. If you look at the S, if you look at the G, the whole governance as well as social is what all of you have been doing all this while. It cannot be new. Even E itself, it has to be something that you know. Energy, water consumption, it's not new. But obviously, the integration of this into your strategy, I will have to say, is something a little bit newer to all of us. So it's something for all of us to take note of. But as I said, this journey is definitely evolving. We just need to make sure that we keep abreast with the changes. And the second last slide that I have is obviously the correlation between ERM and BCP. Like I mentioned earlier, the whole COVID threw us into a different space. So the way that we manage our crisis, the way that how do we respond, how do we recover, and how do we restore our operation is something of a very important element for us going forward. So this is a 3R approach or methodology that we usually suggest to all our clients. Likewise, the way that we crisis communicate in any of the situation is also important as we go into a very uncertain world. We don't know what's going to hit us tomorrow, but it's important to make sure that we are always ready for everything. So with this, my last slide is, hopefully, let's look forward to the survey result, the toolkit, as well as more webinar and trainings in 2024. So with this, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. That's all for this morning.